Kaylee and Lula sat on the beach, looking out at the dark water when the bottle floated toward them. It shone in the moonlight. Kaylee spotted it first. "Mine!" she yelled, splashing into the shallows. "Let me see," Lula whined. "No," Kaylee said. "I found it." She poked at the cork, and it crumbled. Inside was a rolled-up piece of paper, yellow and cracked with age. "What does it say?" Lula asked. Kaylee squinted. "It says that this is a horror podcast, and if there's anything you don't think you want to hear, or if you start hearing something that bothers you, you should turn it off and come back next week." She sighed and flung the paper and the bottle back into the sea. "Huh, nothing good. I guess we should go home." Kaylee turned to Lula, but her little sister was no longer there. Around her, the water was black and cold, and she could no longer see the shore.
PseudoPod, episode 712, July 10th, 2020. This week's story, Flash on the Borderlands 52. You know what you are. Hello everyone, welcome to PseudoPod, the weekly horror podcast. I'm Alistair, your host, and this week's story comes to us from all sorts of people. Here's the thing, everyone gets their dare to be great moment, whether you want it or not. That moment where you find out who you are, what you are. Where your self-image is held out into the blistering light of reality, and when it comes back, well, that rather depends, doesn't it? Hemingway once said, "We are all of us broken by life, and afterwards we are stronger in the broken places," which skips neatly over the part macho authors always like to ignore. The pain, the searing agony of being broken and knowing you have been broken, the question that follows. Perhaps this is you now. These stories live in that moment, but, and I can feel your anxiety spiking as I talk, please listen to me and understand when I say we do not. Remember that as we go on, folks. We'll be fine, and if you need to step out, we understand completely, and we'll see you next week. Our first story comes to us from Drew Chernick, and is called The Boy in the Mirror. Drew lives in Ottawa, Canada with his family, golden retriever, and depending on the season, about 3 feet of snow. This is his second appearance in PseudoPod. It's a PseudoPod original, by the way, and can be found online at All of Algonquin, where he writes non-fiction stories about paddling in Ontario's Algonquin Provincial Park. Your reader for this story is Carlo Rodriguez, and I'm going to let them carry on, because trust me, the story they have for you is true.
The Boy in the Mirror by Drew Chernick. Narrated by Carlo Yeager Rodriguez. Jack was 4 the first time he told me about The Boy in the Mirror. Shannon and I were watching TV when we heard the scream from upstairs. I sprinted up to Jack's room, sure there'd be blood. But he was fine. Physically, at least. He dragged me to his closet door, sobbing about the boy who was watching him through the mirror. I looked at the mirror, saw the two of us looking back. I told him it looked normal to me. He shook his head, pointed at his reflection. "That's not me," he whispered. "That's him." That's how it started. The next time it happened, he was 5. We were going outside when he caught sight of himself in the mirror by the front door. He whirled away, yelling, "No! This isn't your place!" Then he looked up at me, face white, eyes scared. "He says he's coming through, Daddy. I don't want him to come through." It got bad after that. You don't realize how many reflections there are in this world until you walk down a street and your first grader whimpers every time you pass a store window. Then we got the call from the school telling us that Jack was being suspended. Afterwards, the principal showed me the boys' room. It was a typical elementary school bathroom. A row of urinals, 4 kid-sized sinks, and above those sinks, 4 mirrors. Each mirror was cracked, spiderwebbed at the bottom, like someone had hit it with a rock or a fist. When I asked Jack why he tried to break the mirrors, he just shook his head. "I didn't," he said. "He did. He's coming through, Dad. He's coming through, and I can't stop him." I didn't know what to do. How do you tell your kid you think he's going crazy? We took most of the mirrors out of the house. The only one we left was in our closet, and Jack never went in there. At least, we thought he didn't. It was Shannon who found him. He was unconscious on the floor, surrounded by shards of broken mirror, cuts everywhere. The paramedic said he must have thrown his entire body at the mirror. But I wonder about that. When Shannon found him, he was splayed out on his stomach, head towards the closet door, feet towards the mirror, like he'd thrown himself through the mirror, not at it. I've been sitting here for 3 days now, watching him sleep. There's a window by his bed. You can see the hospital grounds during the day. At night, it's harder to see outside through the room's reflection. And that reflection worries me. The thing is, I can see Jack's bed clearly in that reflection. I can see my chair, and I can see myself hunched beside the bed. But the one thing I can't see, no matter the angle, no matter the light, is Jack. There's no boy in that reflection. And I don't know what's sleeping in the bed beside me.
I think a lot about the moments we don't see, the stories we brush up against. Walking home after one of our twice-weekly excursions to the Out last week, we passed a young guy who caught his jacket on a lamppost and in under a second went from normal-level conversation on his phone to red-faced, veins standing out, screaming, "Oh my god, I just ripped a hole in my coat!" Not our story, so we had the luxury of moving on, but he didn't. On the phone, on the street, in a ripped coat. Every story brushes against every other one, and sometimes they leave marks. The genius of this piece is that the menace is constant, and constant in so subtle a way that the characters just adapt. The frog in Gradually Boiling Water becomes a family who remove their mirrors, who make subtle behavioural changes, who find something wearing their sun, feet facing a shattered mirror, lying on broken glass. No explanation, no context, just another story kicking the windows in and joining the fun, whether you want it to or not. Expertly done. Thank you both. Next up, we have Rock Dead by Jennifer Gardner. Jennifer is a freelance writer living in southwest Michigan. When not writing, she enjoys playing pool and making art. Your reader for this story is Autumn Ivy, and listen carefully, because everything they're about to tell you is true.
It started like a dream, a haunting dream, a scary dream, a dream I wish to never have again. There was a body, and the body was not mine, and there was dread that I had killed the body, and fear that the body would rise, its hands would reach around my throat and choke me as I had choked it. Perhaps. And there was a great anticipation, not for anything good. All this I felt while standing over the body. Whose body? Well, that's a hard one to figure out. It's a male body, and it's young and skinny. It's not a he, because it's dead. It's an it, because it's dead. Dead things aren't male or female, Dead things are its because they're dead. Stone dead. Rock dead. Hard and unmoving. I kick it, but it doesn't move. I kick it harder and hurt my toe. What is it like to be dead, I wonder? It cannot tell me. Its lips are rock dead. I cannot see its face. As I said, it's all like a dream, blurry and fading. I can't leave, and I can't do much other than stand over the body and think, what must it be like to be dead? Still and motionless? Well, for that matter, I was still and motionless, unable to leave. Do the dead think? And if so, what about? It's not telling. I kick at its head, trying to jar loose its thoughts. Its head wobbles, its hair shivers, but no thoughts come out. And if there are thoughts locked away in its dead head, it isn't sharing them. It looks up to me. Is it wondering what I'm thinking? Do the living think? And if so, what about? About dead things, mostly. Someone must be coming shortly. Someone to take the body and do whatever it is that's done to dead bodies. Ice, needles, those black zipped bags. Whatever. I look around for them to come, the death people. But I'm alone. Alone with it. Dead bodies aren't good talkers, so I grow bored. I begin to examine its clothing. There are chains around its neck. Chains of crosses with Jesus on them. Oh God, I've killed a Catholic. My fingers touch the cross and unclasp. Jesus would prefer to hang on my chest. Jesus prefers living chests. I give it my necklace in trade. God won't mind. My gold chain graces its neck. It seems pleased with our trade. I can almost see it smiling. What a nice shirt it's wearing. I think of trying it on. Right again. It looks wonderful on me, and my shirt looks wonderful on it. But no outfit is complete without pants. Soon I dance in its pants because they fit perfect. How lucky am I that we are the same size? This becomes a sort of game, this swapping of clothing and jewelry. It has wonderful taste, and our game passes the time until the death people show up. I am now in its clothing, and it in mine. We look like each other, only it is still dead, and I'm alive. But wouldn't it be funny if I was the dead one, and it was alive? What a splendid game I've thought of. So I prop it against a tree, and I lay on the ground, still and unmoving, stone dead. And I think, do the living think? I think I like his shoes, but they look much better on him. He's a he now because he's alive. I'm the it because I'm dead. He kicks my head, hurts his toe. If I wasn't dead, I'd laugh. What a splendid game. Oh, here they come. It's the people with the black zipper bags. Just wait till they get here. Wait till they get a hold of the dead man propped against the tree and the living man lying on the ground. What a laugh they'll have with me. Wait, what are they doing? They're talking to him. He won't talk back. He's dead. I'm the alive one. Down here. They've noticed me? Yes? Hello? Why won't they listen to me? I'm alive, I say. He's the dead one, over there. The it against the tree. It's moving. The dead body. He's walking over. I think he's still playing our game. Game's over, I told him. The death people are here. Game's over. He points down at me and is talking to the death people. I can't hear what he's saying. His words are muffled by my own thoughts. Do the dead think? Yes, they do. The death people are putting me in the black bag. They're bagging me like I'm a tennis racket. They're zipping me up. My head wobbles, my hair shivers. The man zipping me up is thinking. Do the dead think? And if so, what about? About living things, mostly. What's it like to be dead? The death man wonders. I cannot tell him. My lips are rock dead.
I love that the viewpoint of this story, like the identity of the characters, refuses to be pinned down. I love that because our editorial team are fiercely good at what they do, this story can be read as a changeling waking up in their counterpart's place, and it falls right after a story that finishes with what's probably that incident, seen from a different viewpoint. Most of all, I love the universality of the experience. As the mercury droplets of you slide from one second to another, everything changes, and the realization of that mercuriality is where the story and the horror within it lies. The identity, in the end, doesn't matter. The change, the murder, the death, does. That always does. And that brings us to our final story for the week. Free Hugs is by Desmond Warzel. Desmond lives in northwestern Pennsylvania, where he'd write a lot more if he didn't have to work for a living. This is his first appearance on PseudoPod, though his stories have graced Escape Pod and Cast of Wonders, as well as the Drabblecast and the June's Teeth audio fiction magazine. Upcoming or recent publications, including a new tale at Abyss and Apex, and a story in the anthology Forgotten Sidekicks from Crystal Inc. Desmond's work is a joy. Consistently, I cannot think of a short story of Desmond's I haven't loved, so do please seek his other work out. Your reader for this week is Setsu Uzume, my esteemed colleague and dear friend from Podcastle. Setsu is the best podcast host I've ever heard. I'm being completely serious. Every single Podcastle outro I've ever heard has me frantically scribbling notes, and often grinning in astonished admiration. Setsu is extraordinary, and I consider honoured to be a friend, and even more honoured to be a colleague. And they're totally blushing right now. And regardless of that, they have a story for you, and I promise you it's true.
Free Hugs by Desmond Warzel, narrated by Setsu Uzume. The woman has, on a whim, embarked on a hike in unfamiliar woods, prodded by sudden nostalgia for an adventurous childhood. She soon discovers that the stream she has followed to avoid becoming lost is not natural, but rather the output of a large concrete tunnel set into a hillside. Doubtless it is a conduit for the rainwater shrugged off by the nearby town. Above the entrance, some wit has spray-painted the phrase, "Free Hugs!" A familiar online meme come to life. An arrow curves down and inward, pointing into the darkness, its trajectory wavy and uneven, as though applied by an unsteady hand. Sensing an opportunity to truly get into the spirit of the outing, she approaches the tunnel. In addition to several inches of water, its curved floor is littered with twigs, mud, dead leaves, and bits of trash. Where the concrete has cracked, moss and fungus have taken up residence. As she enters, her shoes are immediately ruined. Undaunted, she proceeds, feeling her way carefully forward as the sunlit entrance shrinks to a tiny dot of illumination. The tunnel turns, and turns again, and she is in perfect darkness. She is compelled to pause and take in the fullness of the experience. When the embrace comes, she knows she ought to resist, ought to scream, pull away, run, anything other than stand still and welcome it. But she feels no urge to flee. It is the apotheosis of hugs, enfolding her entire body at once, applying the perfect amount of pressure in each place, a steady, warm encircling of her waist, fingertip caresses of her cheeks, lips, and eyelids, a deep massage of her aching feet, gentle nuzzling of more intimate places, sensual, but not vulgar. The embrace ends, not suddenly, but a piece at a time, as though allowing her to grow accustomed once more to its absence. She retraces her steps to discover dusk approaching and the tunnel entrance nearly invisible. When she finally reaches her car, night has fallen. When she returns the next day, she removes her shoes rather than sacrifice another pair. Treading barefoot through mud and gravel does not slow her, nor does the occasional sensation of something living brushing her instep. She seeks only the embrace, and when it comes, the sensations are undiminished by familiarity. On the third day, it rains. She strips naked at the tunnel entrance, ostensibly to relieve the discomfort of soaked clothing. But the weather on the fourth and fifth days is clear, and yet she repeats the practice. On the sixth day, the embrace is not forthcoming. There is only the empty blackness. She waits, and does not move. And when at last she tries to depart, she finds that she cannot. She feels neither the stab of panic nor the bitterness of resignation. She understands. Soon she can no longer tell where her body ends and the darkness begins. She waits with open arms.
Oh, this is my awful, terrifying jam right here. One of my first exposures to Japanese horror fiction was Enigma of Amagura Fault by the wonderful Junji Ito, which treads similar dank passages with a very different ending, and this idea is one that hits a lot of my fear buttons with a suspiciously gentle but constantly increasing pressure. The thing about sirens is sometimes they're crucibles. Sometimes we steer towards them because we're attracted, and sometimes we steer towards them because we know we won't survive unchanged. And sometimes we don't care. Sometimes the transformation is all the echo of the sensation that led us here, a will-o'-the-wisp guiding us further into the darkness, further out past the breakers to be destroyed and remade. We hope. This is the cave where masochism lives. This is the cave 80-hour work weeks hang from the roof of. This is the cave crunch culture was born in before dragging its exhausted, caffeine-seeking form to the video game industry where it feeds to this day. Don't live in this cave. Don't even visit. No hug is that good. Fantastic story, fantastically read. Thank you both. We rely on you to pay our authors and cover our server costs, and basically every other cost. You can do this one of two ways. You can either donate through PayPal, which you can do through clicking on pseudopod.org and going to Feed the Pod, or through Patreon. At Patreon, there are multiple levels. The more you donate a month, the more you get. The baseline is for $5 at whichever location you get access to our audio vault, full of 15 years worth of exclusive and extra bonus audio, and it's so freaking good and so worth it. If you can, please help out. We need the money. I know everyone does this year, but we really do, especially as we're trying to become one of the first publications in the industry to pay our slush readers. So if you can, please give us a hand. Alternatively, perhaps you could give us some time. Write a review, leave a star rating on Apple Podcasts or whatever it's called this week, or a Google Podcatcher or whichever one you use. Link to an episode that you really liked. Anything like that helps far more than you would know, and believe me, it is needed. So if you can give us a hand, please do. And if you already do, thank you. We'll be back next week when, as now, we will be a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Our story will be the extraordinarily good You Can Stay All Day by Mira Grant. That will be read for you by Kitty Sarkozy. The audio production will be Chelsea Davis, and I have the honour of being your host. Then, as now, we will be a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license, and we leave you with this quote from Enigma of Amagora Fault by Junji Ito. My silhouette saying, "Come in. It's just gaping at me." Thanks, folks. See you next time.
It's a pseudopod. It's a big foot.
It's all about podcasts these days.